It's a real pleasure to welcome Marshall Goldsmith today to have a conversation on leadership. Everybody knows Marshall Goldsmith, renowned leadership coach, having worked with leaders and leadership teams around the world over the years on a mission to make an impact. Marshall is also a renowned author, a best-selling author, in fact, of more than 40 books. And a couple of my favorites, bestsellers, of course, are Triggers and What Got You Here Won't Get You There. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a thinker, but actually he's an all-around good guy. And he also happens to be my coach. Marshall, welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Very honored to be here.
It's a real pleasure. We'll jump right into it, Marshall. In my own journey as a leader, leading across borders and in different arenas, business, sports, and beyond, I've discovered that change is sometimes the biggest barrier to growth. And I've seen that with leaders that I've been around as well. And you have a very interesting model that can kind of help leaders guide them through the change.
Well, this is called the Wheel of Change. The Wheel of Change, and it's a fascinating way, as you said, to look at the concept of change. This is something you can apply on multiple levels. You can apply it in planning your life. You can apply it in coaching other people. You can apply it to looking at an organization or team. So it's very applicable in many settings. First, imagine two dimensions. One dimension is called negative to positive, and the other dimension is called keep to change. And we're going to talk about 4 quadrants on those dimensions. The first dimension in the model of the Wheel of Change is called positive change. This is called creating. This is probably the most fun quadrant in the Wheel of Change, creating. And let's just talk about how this applies in life planning. Who is the new you that you want to create? As you journey through life, and again, I'm a Buddhist. Buddhists said every time I take a deep breath, it's a new me. Think about it. Who is the new you want to create? So the first part of our quadrant is called creating. The next part of our quadrant is called preserving. What is it about the old you that you don't want to change? You want to preserve, protect, or keep. The third part of our model is called eliminating. What is it moving forward that you need to get rid of? Because if we don't eliminate, we can't create. And the fourth part, which I'll talk a little more about, it's called accepting. Negative keep. What is it you need to make peace with or just accept? So let's start at each of the quadrants. The first quadrant is creating. And Paul, as you've seen in our groups together, very important to say, who's the new me? And the one suggestion I have is look at your identity. As you've seen in our talks, many of us program ourselves in a negative way. You say, well, okay, I want to be more patient, but I'm just impatient. That's just the way I am. Well, as you look at who's the new you want to create, challenge yourself. Catch yourself. Anytime you're saying, that's just the way I am, if you want to be somebody different, don't put yourself in a box. Don't say that's just the way I am. And Paul, you've seen me call people on this multiple
times. Many times. You've called me out as well. I am versus used to be, right?
That's right. And as long as we say, for example, as long as you say, I am impatient, you say, well, I want to be more patient. I am impatient. You say that over and over. You program it into your mind. And we talk about ourselves as if we have incurable genetic defects. Well, don't do that. I am going to become a more patient person. Now, the first thing to look at on this Wheel of Change creating is assuming we don't have a genetic defect, we can change anything. I mean, people say, I can't give positive recognition. That's just the way I am. Well, do you have a genetic defect that's making you mean? No, it doesn't have to be the way you are. You just talk about yourself that way. So creating, who is the new me I want to become? And when you do that, you have to look at the way you define your identity as a person. If you don't change your identity, even if your behavior changes, it doesn't work very well. For example, if your identity is, well, I'm a very impatient person, then I work with you for a year and you get feedback that you come across as very patient. If you haven't challenged your identity, you're going to feel like a phony. You're going to think, that's not the real me. The real Paul is impatient. That's not the real Paul. Well, who is it? Of course, it's the real you. So the first part of our identity is the first part of the Wheel of Change is called creating. Who is that new me I want to create? And look at your identity when you do this. The second part, very important, is called preserving. What is it I don't want to change? Now, I have a home in New York City, and in New York City, I frequently see people who are very great about creating. They create wealth, yet they're not so good at preserving. They don't preserve their health. They don't preserve their families. They get divorced. Sometimes what we fail to preserve can be more important than what we do create. So look at the second box and say, what is it that I want to preserve? One of the great leaders I've ever met, Peter Drucker said the greatest leader he's ever met is a woman named Frances Hesselbein. She created incredible positive change in the Girl Scouts in the United States. And she had a motto, tradition with a future. I love that motto, tradition with a future. She said, we have a tradition. There are many things we're going to preserve from our past. We're not going to demean our past, yet we're not going to live in our past. We also have a future. We're going to look ahead. I love that because too many of us, when we try to change the future, don't preserve the past.
Yeah,
very important. What is it you don't want to change? Number 3, eliminating. Very important. We often want to create and we want to preserve, but we never want to eliminate. The problem is that doesn't work. If all we do is create and preserve, we quickly get overcommitted. One of the biggest challenges of leaders I work with, and Paul, you've seen this week after week after week, is overcommitment. Why? Well, I want to create something new. I want to keep everything I have, but I'm not going to get rid of anything. That doesn't work. The famous author Marie Kondo wrote a book about this called The Magic of Tidying Up. And it's a funny story because my book Triggers was #1 business bestseller in the New York Times, but was never #1 on the advice how-to list. It was number 2, number 3, number 2. I was always defeated by one book, The Magic of Tidying Up. I couldn't stand this woman. She kept destroying me, right? The tidy queen for her. And she kept killing me every week. By the way, she didn't just beat me a little bit. She destroyed me. The story gets worse. I come home. There's my lovely wife, Lyda, who I love. We've been married for 43 years. 46 years. I look on her desk and what do I see? The Magic of Tidying Up. Even my wife has bought this book. Oh, well. Well, in her book, she makes
you know where you stand, Marshall. You know where you stand. So that's important.
Well, in her book, she makes a good point. She really focuses on what to eliminate in life. And she says, if this is not bringing me joy, why am I carrying it around? And another Buddhist phrase, everything I possess possesses me. So as we go through life, ask ourselves, what am I going to create? Who's that new me I want to become? What is it I want to preserve, protect? And what do I need to get rid of? What do I need to get rid of? Now, the final part of the Wheel of Change to me is, well, first, let's take the first 3 boxes, the first 3 quadrants on the Wheel of Change. Creating, if you're from India, Brahma. Preserving is Vishnu. And then eliminating, Shiva. These are the 3 basic Hindu manifestations of God, okay? The 4th one, accepting, to me, is more Buddha. Buddha is a philosophy that focuses largely on acceptance. Negative keep. Now, you might ask, why would I keep anything negative? Well, there are many elements in life we're not going to change. In fact, I'll go way beyond that. 99% of everything we're not going to change. What do you need to make peace with? What do we need to make peace with? What do we need to not carry around? Who do we need to forgive? What anger are we carrying around? What bitterness we carry around? What animosity? And Peter Drucker taught me, our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove how smart we are and not to prove how right we are. Well, we can get so lost focusing on what we can't change that we don't put our time and energy on what we can change. So I think very important is to focus on what in life can I change? So look at the Wheel of Change. 4 questions. Number 1, who is that new me that I want to create? Number 2, what is it about the old me I want to preserve, protect, or maintain? Number 3, what is it moving forward I need to get rid of, eliminate? And finally, number 4, what do I need to make peace with or accept?
Powerful stuff, Marshall. And I think, again, in my own experience as a leader, it's tough to accept that you need to make change, but also that you need to accept, as you said, some of the negative elements of who we are. I mean, that's who we are, and we should embrace it and leverage it. Exactly. And I really like the connection with Buddhism and, of course, with India. I happen to be sitting in India right now, so it's very relevant. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marshall.
Thank you. Well, this process is called the daily question process. Now, Paul, for everyone watching us right now, I'm going to teach everyone something that takes 3 minutes a day. costs nothing, will help you get better at almost anything. Did I do my best to be fully engaged? And our research on this is just amazing. You've seen the research. And, we did a huge study involving thousands of people. I think we did 95 studies, and 34% of the people who do this every day said they get better at everything.